Nestled in the heart of historic downtown Wilkesboro, the 1915 offers a wedding experience like no other. Once a federal courthouse and post office, the 1915 combines rich history with timeless charm. From intimate gatherings to full-day rentals, we provide the perfect backdrop for your most cherished moments. With indoor and outdoor options, bridal and groom suites, every detail is crafted just for you. Make your wedding unforgettable at the 1915, Wilkesboro's historic wedding venue, where your story begins.
Closed captions for this episode of Life in Wilkes is brought to you by Deal Insurance Agency in Wilkesboro, an award-winning, experienced, family-owned and operated agency with service and coverage that goes above and beyond expectations. Join us on a captivating journey as we explore the charm, history, and vibrant culture of Wilkes County. Discover the hidden gems, inspiring stories, and remarkable people that make Wilkes a place worth knowing and celebrating. Join us now and experience the unique essence of life in Wilkes.
Steve Critz, good to see you.
Thank you, Carl. It's good to see you, too.
You know, we had a chance to sit down together and watch a play at Benton Hall not long ago.
Yes.
And it was in the black box. So it was the first black box performance I had attended at Benton Hall. And I thought it was fantastic. People seem to be having a great time. And you've added the risers in there. So I didn't know the space without the risers.
Right.
But I thought it was a fantastic experience.
Well, I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah.
We're proud of that black box. Many people don't know about it. But it is a different experience. And not every show would work in the black box, but there's shows that are perfect for that.
No, I would imagine Oklahoma to be just a bit much.
It would be.
It would be. I mean, you'd be completely surrounded by the characters in the performance because there'd be so many of them.
Right.
And I don't know, maybe that's something, as an interactive theatrical performance. I don't know. That'd take a big building, wouldn't it?
Yes.
All right. Well, I loved the black box experience. I thought that was great. We've attended this year a few of your own stage performances going into the holiday season now.
Yes.
You're going to have a holiday show, and then we're off in 2025.
I know. Can you believe that?
No. Yes, I can, but it's like, gosh, time certainly is passing. We met, I don't know, how many years ago? What was the first time we met? Was it at a 4th of July celebration? Maybe was that at Ken's place, or I'm trying to remember.
Something along that line, but I can't remember.
I think Ken introduced us, though,
yeah,
right?
Right, yes.
He definitely introduced us. It's been several years ago. And you occasionally would talk about Benton Hall. I knew a bit about Benton Hall, but not a lot. And I could tell, though, in the brief conversations we had, that you were involved. But as the years have gone on, I've discovered what that involvement means. and it was a bit more than the average patron would be participating in Benton Hall. So I wanted us to take an opportunity to sit down and have a casual conversation about Benton Hall and its history, the history of the building, which I think is fascinating, and then kind of where we are today. So if you wouldn't mind today, I'd like for us to do that and start back with Benton Hall, because it's not always been Benton Hall, has it?
No, it has not. So in 1913, North Wilkesboro, well, I guess it was 1911, but North Wilkesboro decided to build a school. Mm-hmm. And back in those days, there were 11 grades. North Wilkesboro didn't really have a school building. From what I understand, they had some other buildings here that were being used as, temporary schools.
Right.
So they built this school in 1913. It's at the end of D Street, if you're not familiar with North Wilkesboro. And at the time, it was a state-of-the-art school when it was built. It is 3 stories. Each floor has 5,000 square feet on it. It has, at that time, it was 1 through 11, had an auditorium on the second floor, great hall on the downstairs area. It's about 24 feet wide.
So 1 through 11. So that was it. So when you started there in the first grade, you graduated in
Right.
the 11th grade.
Exactly.
And that was, so there wasn't a 12th year at that time.
No, there was
Okay.
not. No.
All right.
And so anyway, the school was opened and was a very prosperous school. It became a school that people wanted to go to, and parents would pay to bring their kids there.
So it was the premier school in the county.
It was
Yeah.
in that time. And from what I understand, they pay their teachers more than others and that kind of thing. So,
And the building itself, though, was also built with a lot of extra care, it seems like, because
Yes.
as we found plans for the plot plans and so forth, what the building looked like earlier, and then as time went on, we've got records of how significant the construction was.
Yes.
It wasn't your average building, was it?
no, the exterior walls as well as the interior walls are 3 courses of brick, and they're about 13 inches thick. And you can tell, you can look at the windows now or the doorways, and you can see how thick that building is. So it was built for, it was fireproof building. In that day, there was no air conditioning, so all the windows or all the doors had a transom over them, as well as a series of transoms on the interior walls. Then the windows are 9 feet tall, and so weighted windows from back in the day, so they could lower the windows, the top part down, to get the ventilation to go through the classroom, through the transoms, into the hallway, into the next classroom, and out that window.
Wow!
And
so it was a scientific marvel of its day.
It
right?
was. It really was. To see that, and those transoms are still there. And
Isn't there something special about that when you just think about that design and what you described? So we're talking about basically fresh air.
yes,
Is providing the ventilation. Fresh air is providing the cool air. And now, today, to get fresh air, we have to manufacture it, right? I mean,
Right.
it has to go through the heating air system, and we've got all sorts of filters. But before today, there was yesterday, and they were doing things right then.
and there's 3 classrooms on each side of the building. So there's one in the middle, and it's a large classroom. It has 8 windows. The 2 corner classrooms have 4 windows on one side and 4 on the other. So just think of the light that they had in those classrooms in those days. They were flooded with light. I guess that was, before, I'm sure they had incandescent light bulbs and that kind of thing. So they had plenty of light, plenty of fresh air. Heat was provided through radiators and
Sure.
big boiler in the basement, about the size of this room, actually.
Wow. So the building was built well,
Very well.
and it was built to withstand time.
It was.
Right.
During some renovation in 2003, a gentleman from Raleigh was here, and he was here for some other reason, but he asked could he look around, and we just went around the building. He went up in the attic, he went in the basement, he went everywhere, and he was so impressed with that building and the way it was constructed. And when he came back and left, he said, if there's ever a tornado in North Wilkesboro, this is the place to be. He said it would withstand a Category 4 tornado.
Wow.
So it's very, very well, and it's still standing.
Yes, that's
And it has a pitched roof on it, and that's one of the reasons it has survived through these years, is because of this pitched roof.
Now that's the primary building. That's the building that's now Benton Hall.
Right.
But if we go back in time again, the school itself, there was a moment when it started to expand.
Exactly.
And you had a gymnasium and another, and the high school, I guess, right, built onto it or
Right.
out from it,
Yeah.
right?
So in 1927, the school had grown, and they built another school building, which became the high school. And it was attached to I guess they called it the elementary school then. They were attached with the breezeway. And then, I'm not sure of the date, but they built a gymnasium in the lower field. It was like a ball field down below. And they built a wooden gymnasium and had play area and things like that in that part. And then in this early 60s, they built a gymnasium and attached it to what we call Benton Hall now, but to the original building. So there was three large buildings, two of which had flat roofs on them, which no longer exist.
Right.
So a lot of that was from leakage and just issues with flat roofs.
So when the first building was built, the design was correct from a standpoint of the pitch roof and the thick walls. It survived. It had time-honored engineering going on there.
yeah.
And then, as time went on, there were new ideas about the flat roofs, and so that was put to the test, if you will.
Right.
And it worked, but it was hard to maintain, right?
Exactly. And another issue is during that time, asbestos was popular.
Right.
And, both buildings had asbestos in them. So they were almost impossible to renovate.
Right.
Because of that. But,
so they weren't.
Yeah.
Right.
But North Wilkesboro School thrived and did very, very well. And in 1976, they decided to build a new school. And they built a new elementary school and moved over on Flint Street, I believe that is, or Flint Avenue. And it's a nice school, a newer school. And then they closed that whole complex there.
At Benton Hall.
Yes, they closed that, and they closed the high school part. The high schools had already combined early, I think in the late 60s or early 70s. So Wilkesboro and North Wilkesboro high schools combined.
Okay.
And they were combined down at Woodward.
Okay.
So that building was left vacant as well. I think the Board of Education used it for some offices for a while. But anyway, it was boarded up and was no longer used. And it, like everything else, it sat there and was kind of deteriorating and decaying from not being used. It did have leaks in the roof, but because it has a pitched roof, it didn't cause more damage to the floors below, but it didn't really, affect the structure.
Now, if I understand right, Steve, there was a time when the Health Foundation became involved with this property as well, right?
Yes. The Health Foundation, when it first was coming into being, it's such a huge organization now, but in its infancy, the Health Foundation was looking for property, looking for a place to build a wellness center. Mr. Benton, Clarence Benton, was talking with the Health Foundation, and his wife, Lucille, was an alumni of that school and loved the school and had always just been attached to it. And she would ride by there often, and she was sad to see the building boarded up, and what a beautiful building it was. Right. And she wished somebody could fix it up and do things. Over the years, there had been several attempts to do something with the building, and she would get very excited about it and help support it, and those never materialized. Just a huge undertaking. So after she passed away, Clarence wanted to do something for her in her memory, and he was talking with the Health Foundation about that property, and they were interested in the gymnasium, the new gymnasium that had been built in the 60s. And it was a very nice gym, had locker rooms, and it was a nice facility, and there was a couple offices below. Can't imagine being in an office below a gym, but anyway, there was offices below, and some other classrooms in that construction. And so that was really good space at the time. The Health Foundation hired architects, or consultants, I should say, to evaluate the property. They said that the 1960 property was good and could be used. The Health Foundation hired some consultants to evaluate the property, and they said that the high school building was of no value, couldn't be used, had flat roof, already had water damage in it, and had asbestos in it, and it needed to be torn down.
So when they say no value, that means to fix this is going to cost more than it's worth.
Oh, way
so
more.
that's basically okay.
It just
right.
It just couldn't be. There's no need in trying to even attempt it. The 1960 gymnasium and offices and classrooms, that was something that could be saved and used. And for their purpose of a wellness center would probably meet their needs. And the original 1913 building, the old, they were at the time referred to it as the elementary school, that the elementary school was of significant historic value, but they shouldn't be using it or even attempt to do it, but it should be preserved.
Right.
So the Health Foundation wanted to purchase the property for use as a wellness center, and Clarence Benton gave the money to the Health Foundation to buy that.
Now, Clarence Benton, he's one of those people of history and at that time who was known to be supportive of a lot of good causes, right?
Yes, right. Yes. He was a wonderful gentleman. Very soft-spoken and just as nice as could possibly, He didn't want to offend anybody. He wouldn't hurt anybody. He wouldn't say anything bad about anything.
You remember talking with him?
Oh, absolutely. From the very beginning.
What did he say? I mean, what were one of those conversations you had with him that let you know that this was really something? Because the building became Benton Hall, had his name on it. But what moment was it that you realized, wow, this has to be Benton Hall?
Early on, hearing him talk so much about his wife and the stories that she told about being a student there, and her love for North Wilkesboro, her love for that school, her love for that building, and how he wanted it to become something and have another use, because she loved that building so much. And they were very intimate well, I shouldn't say intimate. They were just very close conversations where he would just really talk about his love for his wife and what a wonderful person she was, and just a significant amount of love for the community in him, and wanting to do something for the community. He wanted to do that, and he was initially, he wanted it for the Health Foundation to use for a gymnasium, but at the time there was no West Park, and I think that the Health Foundation realized that gymnasium was not going to work for what they initially planned, because an engineer said all the equipment that you would have to put in there to make it like a Planet Fitness or another gymnasium could not withstand that weight and people jumping around in there. So they kind of steered away from that, but they still let people use the gymnasium, and the hospital started using it for classes and different things like that. But it still did have a use. But then the Health Foundation started working with the West Park project, and that really became their focus. And we see what that is today. But
that was a good distraction. Thank goodness.
Yeah. So they did that. They pursued that more so, and so that worked out. So it was just a good timing, and it was I think it was meant to be, because they certainly wanted to honor Clarence Benton, and they certainly wanted it to be used. So I worked at the hospital at the time and knew Alvin Sturdivant, who was the founder of the Health Foundation and the president at the time, and talked to them about the possibility of the Playmakers using the building to perform in, because it had an auditorium in it and a lot of space. And he kind of looked at me with a a raised eyebrow and said, "Are you sure?" So anyway, make a long story short, the Health Foundation did agree to let us use it for $1 a year for 99 years, but it was up to us to renovate it. They were not going to put any money into it.
Okay.
So that was the beginning of that story. So that is kind of how it became part. The property was given to Wilkes Playmakers, or rented, leased to Wilkes Playmakers.
So that was the time that your journey for Wilkes Playmakers began in a new home, because Wilkes Playmakers was already in existence, right?
Right. We've been around for about 4 years.
Okay. So you were still new.
Very.
You'd been around, and now you're looking for a home. Never had you imagined finding a historic piece of property as grand as Benton Hall, right?
No.
Would come to be.
No.
Right. So, Mr. Benton, when did he step up and say, "Okay, I'm doing this"? Was that before or after the decision for Wilkes Playmakers to be involved?
No, he was involved in that decision. I mean, the Health Foundation absolutely consulted him.
Okay.
And he was in agreement.
So he liked that idea.
Oh, yeah. So I had never met him at the time.
Okay.
But right after that, I did. Mm-hmm. And, we walked through the building and talked about it. And we told him our vision and that kind of thing. And he was very encouraging. He helped us financially to get going. And he was just was a big supporter. And as we started doing some activities there, I mean, it was 4 years before we ever got the auditorium to be used for public use. But as we started using the hallway downstairs and different things, he was always there for everything. Yeah,
great. So it sounds like this was a passion from a lot of people. Mm-hmm. People trying to save the building in the beginning. The Playmakers being in existence to do something about it. And did Mr. Benton, once the Playmakers became part of the picture and he knew what was going on, did that kind of excite him a little bit more, knowing that this thing that his wife loved so much was going to have a new life and it would entertain lots of people? Oh, yeah.
He was ecstatic. He was... he would bring family and friends all the time to any event. And as we started, developing the building and different, I'll help you with that. I can do this for you. And so he was always, there for us. He never asked for it to be called Benton Hall. It didn't have a name. And we, as the Wilkes Playmakers board, felt like that we should name it after him. And so it being a school building, we just decided on Benton Hall.
Yeah, such a nice thing. Such a nice thing. So he was certainly a major player in the preservation of the building, but there were others. So once Wilkes Playmakers becomes involved, you have Mr. Benton, but there are other people who care as well. Who were some of those people?
Well, in 2001, Pete Kulynych stepped up, and he was one of the vice presidents of Lowe's, and he had retired. And he was very focused on the community and wanted to help the community in many, many ways, and has done. So his legacy will live on. He wanted a teen nightclub in the town because the teens didn't have anywhere to go, and as in every town, or anything to do, anywhere to go. And so he wanted to develop that nightclub, and he wanted to do it in a historic building. He wanted to preserve something at the same time. So our building is 3 stories, so we were using the first floor and the second floor. A huge basement, which was classrooms. It was the woodworking shop, I think the band room, and different things like that. So, I mean, it was a usable space, but we had just never developed it. And he hired an architect to come look at it and designed it, and it became a teen night club, and it was called Tiffany's Place, and it was after a young lady that he knew. She was a teen, and that was the name he chose. And it was a very thriving nightclub for kids. And we initially were trying to have a place for kids to come after school, so there was computers set up back in the time when people didn't have computers at home. Now, this was all funded by Pete, and a quiet room where they could study. There was a TV room that was soundproof, so they could go and watch a TV program and not bother anyone else. They had like a little grill area, so to speak. It didn't really have. It was just drinks and snacks and stuff like that.
So it was a place that was designed for young people to hang out in a safe environment. A safe environment.
Exactly.
Okay.
And that's what it started out. And we had a director that ran things, and they had programs and stuff. Friday nights would be for, 7th, 8th, 9th grade.
Right.
And then the Saturday nights were 10, 11, and 12, something along that line. So we didn't mix them together. They had a DJ area, had a dance floor. It was pool tables. It had everything.
So a fun place.
It was a fun place.
Safe place.
Yes, it was a safe place. And so Pete funded that. And at the same time, he did a lot for us. He tore down the high school building, which at the time then, it was really rough looking. And then we had a parking lot. We didn't really have hardly any parking. And he did that. And then he also helped us with he put new windows in the building, helped us with our lighting equipment, just a lot of things in the building as well.
So it's taken a handful of significant financial friends to help bring Benton Hall to where it is now.
Right.
Some things were tried. Tiffany's place is not there now, right?
Right.
So that lasted for how long?
Close to 10 years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So it did have a good run.
Yeah, it did. But it just kind of declining in attendance.
Right. Things changed.
Yeah, things changed.
Right.
I guess it was not as popular as it once was.
Right. Well, that's the way life goes, isn't it?
Yeah.
So now you've got. But during that time period, there were all these capital improvements being made on the Benton Hall property, if you will, right?
Correct.
So getting rid of the old gymnasium, which had asbestos problems, all that's gone.
Yeah.
The building, obviously the downstairs would have been renovated to accommodate what was going on down there. Right?
Oh yeah, very nice space.
Well, look at that, Steve. We've gone over again. It never does it ever cease. Rehearsal always goes over, doesn't it?
It does.
It always goes over. Folks, obviously this episode is turned into 2 parts, so I hope you've enjoyed learning all about Benton Hall, because there's so much more in part 2. We'll see you next time.
Thank you for spending time with us on Life in Wilkes. We value you as a viewer and appreciate when you share the show with your friends and family. Be sure to bookmark our channel and join us again on the next episode of Life in Wilkes.